Shape-shifting lizards, secret societies, age-old rituals, ancient aliens, and videos with text-to-voice narration, and more jumping to conclusions than me in the throes of an anxiety attack. Baseless paranoia to some, and the truth for those with eyes to see for others, but for the sake of this video we will call them conspiracy theories. Hello and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Andy Fellows. I make videos on destructive cults, damaging norms, and just generally bad ideas. And today we're talking about conspiracy theories. I wouldn't say that they're real, legitimate theories any more than my theory about my cat is. And my theory about my cat is that he can understand me perfectly well unless I'm using sarcasm, at which point he doesn't realise that I'm an incredibly witty and very loving guardian of his safety. He just thinks I'm being really mean to him. There's been a recent surge in interest in conspiracy theories, one conspiracy theory in particular regarding the unproven effects of 5G towers and our current global predicament. This has led people to setting fire to these towers, which is ridiculous and incredibly dangerous. You know why it's incredibly dangerous? Well, I read on Facebook that radio waves are actually flammable, and that's the secret real reason why you're not supposed to use your mobile phone at petrol stations. I used to believe my share of conspiracy theories, and even today I'm weeding out the odd ones here and there that I still kind of took to be true, even though they were obviously nonsense. For the longest time I'd had my suspicions about microwaves and about vaccinations, the government, Freemasons, and certain plants being magical cure-alls, and that's why they're illegal, and more. Now, that's not to say there's no reason to be suspicious of some of the things I just listed, but I've heard a lot from conspiracy theorists lately, and some of the things I've heard have got me questioning. Why do they believe this stuff? One thing I've heard really stuck with me. We live in a chaotic world, right? And having a belief system that explains in some way some of the scarier or more confusing parts of that world. A belief system that ties disparate things together in a way that a narrative can be constructed. That may be comforting. Symbols take on greater meaning, and secret gatherings become the places that the powerful plot the fate of the average person. And small, unassuming changes become adjustments in a nefarious create the problem, control the reaction, and offer the solution plan for global domination and the stripping, the erosion of the freedoms of the common person. For the whole problem reaction solution thing to actually work, I think you would have to show that the person who was offering the solution was actually the person who created the problem in the first place, and I think in some instances that may well be the case. However, thus far, for the majority of conspiracy theories, I would say the most you have is conjecture and confirmation bias feeding on systemic and institutional distrust. And, of course, dots connected arbitrarily. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there is nothing to any of this. In fact, there may be a grain of truth in some of this stuff, and I think there is a grain of truth in some of this stuff, but it rarely stacks up the way that the average conspiracy theorist wants it to. The use of symbols is age-old, and the potential for secret gatherings to go bad is a common trope in storytelling. And that's not without good reason, I don't think. And I'm not saying that there isn't obviously a subtlety in the way that public opinion is often managed, if not moulded by the media and the government. As I say, maybe the problem reaction solution thing is legit, but we would have to verify that the person offering the solution is the person that created the problem. And a lot of conspiracy theories that I've heard, especially ones to do with the global elite and all of that, hinge on that, and they don't offer very much evidence that it is the person who's offering the solution that caused the problem in the first place. Again, not saying that never happens, just saying that in the cases where there's this global conspiracy of secret keeping that's way beyond a reasonable number of people to expect to be able to keep it secret, there's very little evidence to support this kind of assertion. However, on the face of it, this nefarious reptilian shape-shifting global elite pulling strings from behind the scenes thing sounds kind of scary. And like I say, there might be some truth to it. Maybe not like the reptilian shape-shifting part, but maybe the other parts. But if I've learned anything since I've started looking at cults and speaking about them to you here on this channel, I've learned that a charismatic person's influence can achieve a lot, and not all of it good. undue influence, control over a person's entire outlook, or what we colloquially tend to call brainwashing, there's some truth to that. It may be not in the sci-fi way that we think of it, but there's some truth to that. And I think knowing what I know, I wouldn't be able to just ignore the reality that a person who is charismatic, who does have people under undue influence, who has been able to rise to a position of power, could do some real damage, and there could be some real things going on in that regard in the world. Could be, though. I want to be clear there. Could be. I'm not saying there is. Could. But we were talking about these ideas bringing someone comfort, and on the face of it, I don't think it's necessarily a very easy thing to see why believing in that might bring someone comfort. But being one of the few to realize it's happening, being one of the few to be awake and conscious enough to see the truth. I'm going to stop doing air quotes now, there's a lot of that in this script. Being one of the few people who have real eyes, which are realizing real lies. Being the powerful creator us against the evil elite them, tasked with waking up the sheeple to realize their true power as sovereign beings. Yeah, quite a feeling that. Tribalism hijacked by a messiah complex. Delicious. To be fair, I could see the same being true of a number of different belief systems, so that's why I think it's fair to call this cult-like. A lot of how conspiracy theorists talk and behave and treat people who don't share the same beliefs as them is actually quite similar, strikingly similar, to how people in cults tend to behave. But while cults may spring up making use of conspiracy theories, not all conspiracy theorists are cult members themselves, and that's an important distinction to make, I think. A cult typically requires a central authority figure and some degree of control being established through undue influence. Despite the wide array of theories and the sheer volume of self-appointed experts on the truth, conspiracy theories are fertile ground for cults. But not every conspiracy theorist is in a cult, despite the similarities in rhetoric and attitude. And it's that rhetoric and attitude, I think, that is a problem for conspiracy theorists, and any group really that thinks they've got something to teach the world. From Christians and cult members, to conspiracy theorists, to vegans, all the way through to atheists. So many people who have come to an idea themselves that bucks a trend in their culture have conviction on at 11, but have done no real studying on how to communicate effectively. There's a lot of I think I'm right, and a lot of emotion, and very little effective communication. And if you can't communicate effectively, it doesn't matter how right you are. If you can't communicate effectively, you might as well be wrong. If you're one of the few who gets it, then that sometimes comes with a strange sense of having to carry a burden that means you have to enlighten other people. I think we're all guilty of that, although I don't know whether that's necessarily something to be guilty about. I think really it just comes down to how you go about trying to share what you think is true with other people. Where cult members model their charismatic leaders in their attempt to recruit new members, conspiracy theorists tend to only have each other or their mirror to bounce ideas off of. And that echo chamber often has them looking to the outside, to people who don't believe what they believe already. And to non-believers, that echo chamber often has them looking like someone who needs help, rather than someone who has found the truth in some way. Of course, a few conspiracy theorists who do have the communication skills and the charisma to go with it are liable to become cult leaders themselves, which is its own problem. Thankfully, that's not the majority as far as I'm aware, and so we don't have this overwhelming number of conspiracy cults. Instead, we have angry, accusing Facebook posts and ill-fated Facebook groups. And then there's the dubious claims made by the believers, the ones that rarely go anywhere. And when you attempt to drill down for more information, you get vacuous platitudes, yet more claims, vicious ad hom attacks, and my personal favourite, watch this video and then you'll understand. And the video is normally the lowest possible production quality. I'm talking grainy images annotated on Microsoft Word. I'm talking text-to-voice narration, if you're lucky. I'm talking royalty-free sci-fi suspense music. Shitty conspiracy videos are an entire genre of their own, and they're brilliant. Lower production quality than History Channel's flagship Ancient Aliens, but all of the unbridled enthusiasm that you know and love. Documentaries like Ancient Aliens and these shitty conspiracy theory videos all over YouTube have another thing in common too. Like self-assured voiceover and unrelated images that prop up the narrative, but when you actually look at the images and compare them to what's being said, they're typically irrelevant or just misleading. Every 13,000 years they returned, each time gifting us new, ancient wisdom. Experts call this stair-step evolution. Crystal technology, quantum healing, electricity, and the secrets of the mystery schools that enabled us, with the help of our ancient alien ancestors, to build the pyramids from the top down. And then there's the stuff that has no basis in reality at all. The stuff that is purely scaremongering, or what I think is neophobia, fear of the new. It's like that old thing about Socrates thinking reading and writing would destroy the memory. We freaked out about books, we freaked out about TV, about advancing technology in general. There was that whole Y2K thing. And we freaked out about 3G and 4G. I say we, I use the term loosely, not everyone clearly, but some people freaked out about 3G and 4G. And now people are freaking out about 5G with much of the same reasoning. It reminds me of Juvenoia too, defined on Wiktionary. How do you pronounce that? Wiktionary. Defined on Wiktionary as fear or hostility directed by an older generation towards a younger one, or youth culture in general. But this is more than that, I think. It takes fear and it raises it. It's like neo-noia. I'm coining that here. I don't know if it's like, maybe it means something somewhere else, but I'm coining that. You heard it here first, folks, unless you didn't. Neo-noia, paranoia about the new. And this neo-noia in conspiracy theorists seems to be built up out of a deep-seated institutional or systemic distrust, and a healthy but misdirected skepticism, which in most cases seems to have gone too far. So it's like this thing that happened to me recently. In a Facebook group that I never left after my New Age years, someone posted this picture of 12 famous women that they were saying was a word I can't say on the channel without being demonetized probably, but it's a word thrown around surprisingly often by conspiracy theorists. So they were making this claim. They were saying that these women were, word I'm not going to say, and I asked for their sources. I asked why they thought this, why they believed this, and I was told that it's not good to ask for sources and that I should look for the information on my own. I was told I should do the research on my own and that the truth was out there. I told them about the burden of proof, but obviously they were having none of it. Clearly, they were confident that if I just went out into the jungle with nothing but a vague idea of what I was looking for, I would definitely find the truth. And it's funny that the truth's always on really dodgy websites. And for all the time that these conspiracy theorists spend on these questionable fringe websites, you think they could just take a search term from the new thing that they want to believe, paste it into Google or any other search engine, type the word debunked on the end, and just have a little read. Just like a 5-minute browse, just a couple, honestly, 1 minute maybe. 1 minute would even, perhaps, make a difference. And therein lies the answer, I think. Now, there's an argument to be made that conspiracy theorists need to learn more about skepticism and critical thinking, and maybe they do. But for the most part, at least to some extent, I think a majority of them have some degree of that down. The trouble is, I think people really want to believe in this stuff, and it's like with a faith in God. Childhood indoctrination aside, typically the reasons that people believe in a God are very personal and unique to each believer. And I don't think it's always the case that when asked the reason given by someone who believes in God as to why they believe in God is the real reason that they do. The funny thing to me though is that I always get this question from conspiracy theorists. You call yourself a skeptic, why don't you question the system? And first off, don't make assumptions like that. You're embarrassing yourself. Second off, I think this is really the meat of the issue. It may well be the case that a large part of why these people that trust in David Icke, believe in David Icke over a more reputable source has more in common with why people believe in ghosts than why skeptics don't trust David Icke. Maybe they want to believe that there's more to life than they see. Maybe it's the comfort of believing that there's an explanation for the chaos in the world. Maybe it's that sense of significance that fills the ghost hunter and the neo-noiac alike when they think that they've seen something that only the special have. Maybe conspiracy theories are one of the many ways that us humans have found to make ourselves feel comfortable, to feel special, to feel certain in an uncertain world. Now, if we could just get them to stop writing in all caps and maybe teach them about the burden of proof, we'd be on to a winner. Videos like this are made possible by my wonderful patrons whose names you will see listed at the end of the video. If you like the kind of stuff I make and you want to help support the channel, the absolute best way to do that is through Patreon. There's a link in the description and in the live chat to the side of this video. Other than that, please hit the like button, stick a comment below and let me know what you thought of this video. Subscribe to the channel to see more from me on destructive cults, damaging norms, and just generally bad ideas. And let me just say one last thing to end this video. Please, be kind and ask good questions. I'll see you in the next one.